R.G.Felton,
Felton.
I'm sorry, Ray, is somebody who has got quite close associations with Tony, and also was somebody who was responsible for the running of South over quite a considerable period of time. I'm asking Ray to say a few words before he reads you some poems. Ray.
Thank you. My introduction to the world of R.G. Gregory came in 1980 when my friend from school, living in exile in Sussex teaching philosophy, took out a subscription for me for Doors. Patrick's already mentioned that magazine. And it ran for 50 issues, but Greg, as we always called him, was a remarkable man, and he had come to Dorset in, I think, the early 70s to set up an instant theatre product. And he taught the people how to, he was a drama teacher in his colleges and schools, and he taught the people how to act and do the very difficult thing of allowing the audience to make up the story, and then they acted the story from there. But he was also, apart from writing plays, he also wrote poetry, and he was obsessed with poetry, in all truth. And so I started sending in poems for Doors, and they were published, fortunately. And I got to know Greg extremely well. And from Greg, there were a whole crowd of people working with him. And he was a charismatic sort of man. And but he was always very restless. And Doors was first published in January 1979. And South, he had an idea for another magazine, and that was first published in April 1990. And he was also very keen on setting up poetry workshops. And he called a meeting, and we all went. We always obeyed Greg. And Malcolm Povey, who was teaching at the then Wallasdown Institute, which became Bournemouth University, volunteered that he could arrange accommodation at the university. And he and I ran that workshop for many years. And when I think it was when Greg got to about 75, which is my age now, he suddenly decided he wanted to concentrate on his own work, poetry, plays, and books about drama. And so that's what he did. And he eventually left Dorset and went up to Market Drayton to live, and married a woman he'd known for many years there. And he's still going strong. He came to lunch with us a few weeks ago. But there were many other interesting people associated with Greg, including a very old friend of mine, whom I'd known at school, Martin Blythe. And so he left us to take over the running of South. Sadly, in 2006, which was a hell of a year, on the 23rd of February, Martin died of a massive stroke overnight. On the 7th of June, the youngest of our 3 daughters died suddenly in hospital. And on the 14th of November, Richard Hicks, who had dealt with all the accounting procedures, had a reaction to a brain tumour, fortunately non-malignant, when he was in London.
Tony break.
Yes. And I put in an appeal into the issue of South, which we had to cobble together without Martin. And the person who applied to take over the typesetting was Anne Clegg, as she was known then. She's now Anne Peterson. And then, because of the way my wife and I felt, and incidentally, we'd done all the proofreadings for the 50 issues of Doors, and was doing the proofreading as well for South. We decided we wanted out, so we put an appeal in the November issue of South, and who applied to take over but Tony Turner, Patrick Osada and Chrissy Williams. So we had a meeting and passed everything over to them, and they've been remarkably successful in continuing what Greg has always regarded as his brainchild.
But Tony had quite a long association with the developing South.
Yes.
Long before he
Yes,
took over
yes, he published
reins.
a great deal of his work in South, and on one famous occasion, I was the one who decided who would do the readings. On one famous occasion, I didn't choose him because it was always oversubscribed, the reading list, and he wrote me an absolutely stinking letter. But I read back to him in polite and friendly terms, because we were great friends. And when I next saw him, he apologised quite humbly. But he was a lovely man, and I'm going to read a couple of his poems. One is a very short one, which is quite enigmatic and difficult to penetrate. It's called St. Martin's Summer, and it's Martin Mass, November the 11th. My very astute wife pointed out that was Armistice Day, which I think is the key to the poem. I'll read this. After fire, 4 ice closes, a moment of radiance, calm instead of storm, mildness, severity expected, forgiveness unlooked for. After strife, when madness ends, serenity and silence, gift undeserved, unexpected grace, gift of second sight. The other poem is not a very long one. It's about his mother's father, and it's called James Edmund Savage, 1880 to 1946. I called him Daddy Pat. He was 50-something, a Ballycastle man who talked of cakes and castles and loved my grandmother's pikelets as much as I did. We kicked a ball about when he was free, and I thrilled to the incitement of his eyes, the fervour of his voice, the skill of his aging feet. Years later, I heard his story. A penniless runaway, he served 2 armies, rose to captain, MC, MBE, surviving Gallipoli and France, to work for Australia in New Guinea. Singer, actor, sportsman, born a Catholic, he died Masonic Grand Lodge inspector. They say he had a temper, violent, terrifying. I never saw it. They say he wasn't faithful. He was faithful to me. He left my grandmother penniless. He wasn't much of a daddy to mother. He was to me. I remember his last words from the far side of the world when war had parted us, about the thrill of hitting the net with a football. They lit up my schoolboy life. Soon after, they told me he died. I cried and cried.